Good morning. I want to get in the right frame of mind this morning. I'm a psychologist, and I want to share with you some of my ideas about psychologist's perspective in the year 2000 eventually, but for now, I want to read to you from a poem written by one of the world's greatest living psychologists, George Harrison of the Beatles. Sometimes the insights come from places you least suspect it, and I think that a lot of the psychological insights of our age are coming now from the Beatles and from the rock groups. Anybody that's worried about the younger generation, stop worrying, everything's cool. This is from Within You, Without You. We are talking about the space between us all, and the people who hide themselves behind a wall of illusion never glimpse the truth. Then it's far too late when they pass away. We were talking about the love we all could share. We could find it, to try our best to hold it there with our love. With our love, we could save the world if they only knew. Try to realize it's all within yourself. No one else can make you change. And to see you're only really very, very small, and life flows on within you and without you. We were talking about the love that's gone so cold, and the people who gain the world and lose their soul. They don't know, they can't see. Are you one of them? When you've seen beyond yourself, then you may find peace of mind is waiting there. And the time will come when you see we're all one, and life flows on within you and without you. I came to your church last Sunday and heard this talk about the state of the world in terms of pollution and thermonuclear war and population, and the conclusion that we may not be here at all in the year 2000. This didn't bother me a bit. I drank a lot all week, but it didn't bother me very much when I was sober in the intervals. A lot of what happened already is part of my message, and I want to start out by saying that my talk is not about the year 2000, but we're going to try to do it in its way. We don't change costumes or voice, but we're going to try to do an expression of the concept of the aesthetic species, if you will. And I'll refer to the aesthetic species from time to time. I don't mean to be pompous, but I mean to have as much humility as I can gather to get the idea across that each of us has within us and without us a part of the aesthetic image, a part of seeking for beauty and something nice. So I thought, rather than coming and talking at you this morning about things I am supposed to know about the year 2000, I really know very, very little. But I do have some hopes for it. And what we're going to try to do is, from here on, is really not just a trio, but we're going to try to interact as a quartet. I just want to share with you one of my findings. I've been looking for data to present to you, but I come up with failures more often than successes to talk about man in the year 2000. But there is a nice success I had. It's just one piece of data. Let me show you. It's in the form of a slide. This is, you'll all recognize, this is an artist's conception of the Beatles in the year 2000. That's 30 years from now. That's the way they'll all look. So I thought part of the program for giving you some idea of what the aesthetic species may look like in 30 years. I am on voice, and Bud Hunt will be playing bass. Joyce Gabriel playing piano. Joyce? And Grover Mooney playing drums. the Earth is about 5 billion years. And one of the problems for us is to find our place in that age. Where do we fit? If we try to condense this time scale into 1 year's time, 365 days instead of 5 billion years, I can't count much over 20 very quickly, and let's put it on a scale we can all understand. We put that 5 billion years into 1 year's time, then New Year's Day is the opening of the earth, its very beginning, the beginning of time. And we say, well, in that context, on what date and at what hour does man appear? At what date and at what hour does man appear? It's not January or February or March. Mrs. May Day. He misses the summer and he goes into the cold of fall, and has man yet appeared? He hasn't appeared. He hasn't appeared in November or December, but in December, late in December, in the history of the world, a monkey-like figure, an anthropoid, very primitive, emerges on December the 28th. December the 28th. The stone tools of Australopithecus are found, and the dating of Australopithecus, which is the first sign of tool-using man, get this, December 31st at 8:30 p.m. on this time scale. And we arrive at 11:56 p.m., just 4 minutes before midnight, December 31st, just barely in time to welcome the new year. The urban civilizations of Mesopotamia, only 30 seconds before midnight. So you see, all that we're talking about, we're trying to project 30 years into the future, and I consider it a tremendously difficult thing to do. Things are changing so very rapidly. The Industrial Revolution, 1 second before midnight. And here we are, the age of Aquarius, aiming or being aimed in the direction of more technology, greater urbanization, more computerization, and the rumor has it that one of the advanced nations has now put a man on the moon. I've heard that. I don't believe it altogether. I'm not sure I go up in an airplane when the airplane goes up, because one thing, they got the engines on wrong. If you're going up, you put the engines up. You don't put them forward. Any fool knows that. You can't go up with the engines forward. According to the experts, we're polluting our air, our rivers and lakes. We have stocked the equivalent of between 15 and 30 tons of TNT for every man, woman, and child on the face of the earth, and that's our nation alone. It's not surprising then, and I recommend the book to you highly, Jules Henry, Culture Against Man. He was a tortured man, an anthropologist, a man who lived too much in the present, almost for his own good. When I see the worried person, when I see the furrowed brow, when I see the person upset, I say, maybe he's in touch with reality, and those of us that are smiling are not quite in touch. Jules Henry, he laid down his life, so to speak, for the new man. Culture Against Man. And I just want to read to you, not from the content of this book, but from the preface. He had finished the book in April of 1962. It's springtime. And he says, the earth looks good from my window. The last protective brown leaves are falling from the oak, and little yellow-green ones start from the twigs and branches of the willow. The Japanese quince is in full bloom, and the tinier buds of the quince blossoms are already pink among them. The peach tree that my wife planted from a pit is now 10 feet high this spring. The dogwood is gray with a foam of new buds. It scarcely seems possible that the world should be in the state I describe in this book. Pick it up and dig it. It's one of the very important statements by a man who's now dead. As a psychologist, what I fear most for every individual is that he learns his good habits. That he learns his good habits. Because when you learn a good habit real good, you learn to establish a rhythm. And if you establish a rhythm, you could be like the lemmings going to the sea. You could be led right into the water, right into drowning, right into death. And I want to read to you from something by Charlie Chaplin titled Rhythm. From the somber dawn, streaks of silver and red peered over the prison wall and breathed a quiet requiem in rhythm. With a stillness in the yard, a rhythm pulsating in silence like the throbbing of a heart. Out of that silence, the voice of the commanding officer resounded against the prison wall. Attention! At this command, 6 subordinates snapped their rifles to their sides and stiffened. The unity of their action was followed by a pause in which the next command was to be given. But in that pause, something happened. Something that broke the line of rhythm. The condemned man coughed and cleared his throat. The interruption broke the concatenation of procedure. The officer turned, expecting the prisoner to speak, but no words came. Turning to his men again, he was about to proceed with the next command, but a sudden revolt took possession of his brain. A psychic amnesia left his mind a blank. He stood bewildered before his men. What was the matter? The scene in the prison had no meaning. He saw only objectively a man with his back to the wall facing 6 others, and the group there on the side, how foolish they looked, like rows of clocks that had suddenly stopped ticking. No one moved. Nothing made sense. Something was wrong. It must all be a dream. He must snap out of it. Dimly his memory began to return. How long had he been standing there? What had happened? Ah, yes, he had issued an order, but what order came next? Following attention was the command present arms, and after that to aim, and then fire. A faint concept of this was in the back of his mind, but words to utter it seemed far off, vague, and outside himself. In this dilemma, he shouted incoherently, jumbled words that had no meaning. But to his relief, the men presented arms. The rhythm of their action in his brain set it to rhythm, and again he shouted. Now the men took aim. But in the pause that followed, there came into the prison yard hurrying footsteps, the nature of which the officer knew meant reprieve. Instantly, his mind cleared. Stop! He screamed frantically as the 6 men in the firing squad, 6 men, stood poised with rifles. 6 men were caught in rhythm. 6 men, when they heard the scream to stop, fired. I can dig it now. That's right. It's heavy. Here we are. We have just left the Piscean age, an age of sorrow, of persecution, of oppression of the weak by the strong. Now, it is said that we are entering more than 2,000 years of exploration, of science, and of the mysteries of the air. We now encounter the great task of spiritualizing a materialistic age. It's also the age of Woodstock, the Aquarian Exposition, 350,000 people in Woodstock, the third largest city in New York State for 3 days. No fighting, nobody angry. Maybe the Aquarian age is here. Instead of the values of my property versus your property, let's share it. Instead of guarding against revealing myself to you, let me tell you who I am. Instead of hating, loving. Instead of doing something, instead of conquering space, instead of working on the fields, work with the fields, work in space. Be, don't do. Be, don't do. Be. Because if we keep doing to other people and other things, we will not be. Be, don't do. It's one of those names, isn't it? You kind of know this guy's going to be uptight. Ludwig Wittgenstein. He's going to be a tough guy to deal with, and he was a tough guy to deal with. One of the leaders of the positivist school of philosophy. One of the toughest guys in philosophy. And under every tough guy is a nice, soft, aesthetic guy, and it's just a matter of looking for it and hoping it'll come out. And somehow Wittgenstein could say it. He said it one time at least. For a positivist philosopher, understand, to talk about eternity must have meant he was having himself one whale of a high at the time. Well, you can get high in various ways, and he must have found his way, because I think this is really beautiful. If we take eternity to mean not infinite temporal duration, but timelessness, then the eternal life belongs to those who live in the present. You say you want a revolution? Well, you know we all want to change the world. You tell me that it's evolution? Well, you know we all want to change the world. You say you'll change the Constitution. Well, you know we all want to change your head. You tell me it's the institution? Well, you know you better free your mind instead. Don't you know it's going to be all right? It's going to be all right. All right. We can ask the question, what's going to happen to us? And that question can be a very big question, or it can be a very little question. By a very little question, I mean, what does the word us mean? Is us me and my wife? Is us me and my family? Is us me and my community? Is us in this room in Cincinnati? Is this us including all people? Does it include all members of our species? Or are we going to exclude the dogs and the cats too? We're going to include them. Us ultimately ought to be all things. And to the extent we fall short of that, we haven't got it together. We haven't got it together until us includes all things. There's one of all things. That's an African child. More African children. And what's going to happen to those African children in those developing nations? Is technology going to control them, or are they going to control technology? Right now I feel pretty pessimistic about it. I really feel that technology has the grip on us. We don't have the grip on technology. These children's future, I think, will be determined more by the city into which they move than by the values which they themselves possess. And one of the tricks that we've got to turn at this point is to begin to control technology. What's he going to grow up to be? Does he know that when he gets another 10 years older, he is going to want to own a wristwatch and a ballpoint pen and a Mercedes-Benz more than anything else in the world? Does he know that? He doesn't know it, but he's going to believe it and want it. he's going to believe it and want it. And he's going to want a TV set. And he's going to want one of those slide projectors so he can tell his friends about us the way we're talking about him. What's going to happen to them? Are they going to continue to be, like females all over the world, one of the largest minority groups on earth? Inventing toys. They're really very creative. Some people call them primitive. Let's just call them creative. You see that tire there? That isn't just a tire. That's not just a round circle. That's the fantasy he is working on so that he will put a Mercedes-Benz around the tire when he grows up. It's outside his realm of choice. He's learning to fantasize what is coming. He's driving a car. Years ago, in Africa, several hundred students wrote some essays about what they expect the world to be like in the year 2000. Now, most of these essays are literally laced through with achievement aspirations. They want to get ahead, they want to have the house, and of course, like men everywhere, they want to have an obedient, beautiful woman to take care of things. He says, at present, I am very much concerned with and very much worried about the school certificate examination for which I will sit in 2 years to come. Yeah, their brains been washed there too. Every man has to be examined. Every man has to be evaluated. Are you good or are you bad? I sometimes ask myself why I am so much worried about this very thing, but I sometimes leave the whole matter unanswered. Let me therefore take this chance to try and solve my problem. My failure to answer this question was due to the fact that I was always frightened to look into the future. But now let me see what will come after these exams, and a little before I do it. And he goes on poetically in a very nice way about what will come. Here's another. We shall first be in happy times, eat and laugh, but at the end we shall all die, and no one will still remember the happy time he or she had. The more we learn, the more we become wise, and the more we shall destroy the world, and that's nice. We are so wise, and we have so many big computers and so many nice machines using us that we have become wise, and we shall destroy the world. God will not destroy the world, but people will destroy it. Every sinner will die, and everybody will die, but not God, and not by God, but in the war. After the world has been destroyed, God will create new living things, and now learning things. This will be the second world. God will enable the first again. From this time, people will increase slowly, and they will start by living in the caves and eating uncooked food until they will go on at last to come to know everything. They will make things as the first ones made, which will cause war, and the world will be destroyed a second time. This will go on until then. psychology. What will it be? What can it say? I see psychology saddled between two things: culture and technology, overriding the kinds of things we do. The fact that you are all here today from various parts of the city are part of that. The fact that there's a car waiting for you wherever you go. The fact that you're cold when you walk outside and uncomfortable because you've been conditioned to go from air-conditioned box to air-conditioned box. And when the cold of winter, the chill of fall, and the heat of summer contact you and me, all of us, we resent it. I'm cold. You should be cold. It's winter. I'm hot. You should be hot. It's summer. The leaves are coming out on the trees. They should be. It's spring. And there's a dead leaf there in the gutter. There should be, because it's fall, you know. So can we get back? Can we get back to it? I don't know. If we do it, if we're here, our psychologies will be different than they are now, you can guarantee that. Some things have already started. Perception. You no longer have to perceive in that straight, linear fashion. The message here is as much there as it is here. Pretty soon you'll know that the message is as much in your heartbeat. It would be very groovy if everybody just took hold of their pulse and felt their pulse. Go ahead and check your pulse out, feel your heartbeat, dig it, dig its rhythm, dig what it's doing. Feel it. It would be even nicer if you felt somebody else's pulse. Maybe there's somebody you love next to you, man. Dig it and feel his pulse or her pulse. That's even nicer. But feel it and see if it isn't talking along with the drum. We're going to have more and more of these kinds of multimedia experiences and perceptions. Every musician here today knows exactly what I'm talking about. The musicians and the artists have been talking about this for centuries, and some of us fools who study psychology are just beginning to understand it. Learning. How are we going to learn? Well, all the learning we're doing now is sure worthless. All that teaching is sure worthless, because things are changing so rapidly. You remember the ancient civilizations of Mesopotamia on our time scale came in 30 seconds before midnight in the Industrial Revolution, only 1 second before midnight. And we're changing so rapidly, and technical innovation is occurring so rapidly that all the things you're learning now are going to be absolutely worthless in 10 years in terms of facts, in terms of information, in terms of stuff you stick in your head. Worthless. What's going to be important is your lifestyle, how you go about it, what you do with it. And learning is going to be, finally, every infant knows this and every young child knows it, that learning is synonymous with play. And the minute we stop putting down play and saying play is a nice way to learn and understand the human organism, that when he's playing, he's learning. And we're playing right up here, man. Am I learning a lot just looking into your face playing here, man? It's really nice. I wish you could all be playing. And I hope you're playing around in your head right now, because that's very nice. But there's not going to be any more work. It's going to be play, and it's going to be very, very nice. Memory. Forget it. We got a generation gap today that is unlike any generation gap that has ever been. Don't fool yourself. There have been generation gaps before, but this one is different. This one is different. You see, a lot of us are talking generation gap, and that ain't even where it is. It is a sibling gap. The older child is not as hip as the younger child. The boy of 18 doesn't know what a boy of 16 knows. And the 13-year-old has got the 16-year-old outside. So the great tradition of us older folks teaching those younger folks something has just ended. And now who are we going to learn from? We're going to learn from little children. And who are we going to learn from? We're going to learn from women for a change. We're going to start listening to them like we never listened before, because the way us white boys have it together is not very good. There has never been a culture with a warrior class of women. I think we better start paying attention to that element in our species, because they don't seem to fight the way we do. Maybe we had better listen. The strong form of my argument is turn it over to the women, fellas. We're screwing it up badly. Give it to them now before it's too late. And the weak form of the law is at least listen to them. Go home and listen to her, fellas. Go home and listen to her, because she knows something. She approaches the world in a way you don't. And we better listen. And we better listen to the children. And you better listen to black people. You better listen. Because all that screaming and all that yelling coming from black people and from little children and from women is say, hey man, listen to me, hear me. I've got something to say to you that's so important, man, you've got to listen. And
saying, listen to the artists. Listen to them. Because they're saying, I've got something for you that's really nice. Take it. And listen to the mentally ill. They're saying, you're crazy. You're nuts. You're out there killing one another and all that, and you don't know what to do about it. You must be crazy. It's nicer in here. Come on inside. Come over to my place. And you know the funny word that precedes all of these categories? The funny word is the word just. Just a woman, just a child, just a black, just a crazy person. We say the word just when we mean unjust. And not only justice to ourselves, but justice to everything in the world. And so what I'm recommending, not predicting, but recommending, is that we better become an aesthetic species. There's a lot of hope. One place, there are little centers of hope. Little places where there's hope. It's not all over. I mean, if you look all over and at everything, you don't quite see it. But if you look hard in little places, you'll find hope. And there's one little center of hope up in Madison, Wisconsin. And it's called the Broome Street Theater. And they're independent of the university, but they're helped by the university to survive. And they're helped by cooperative markets run by students. And they are actors. And this is a poem I did for them. It was so impressive. I felt, man, I can't talk to you my way. I'm not an actor, and I'm not a musician, and I can't do for you what you did for me, but I can write you a poem. And so I did. And this is titled, One for the Broome Street Brothers, and it just represents my philosophy that up there is part of the aesthetic species. And there's some of it here, and there's all of it all over the aesthetic species. Dig it. Dancers ever dancing, danced, they are dancing. Your stage won't stand still, a stage flowing ever wise and otherwise into the knocking, talking, shuffling scuffle of the lobby, dribbling and driving downstairs to the street, then out to the warm silver sea, the lover's bed, the winter's wacky sky, and the broken man's empty wallet. Binary masks, on then off. Once here, always here. I come in, but I never leave. An appealing feeling sailing over uptight towns, a burger chef rebellion. People, doing and undoing wrongdoing. Teasing, paying participants, spilling their will in the tingling till. Telling tales, feeling fails, making sounds of nailing nails, bang. The cast's ass wiggles in the direction of the future with a glance over the shoulder at sham and shame. You, the Broome Street Brothers, an aesthetic species, spectral theses, up sounds downtown.